the full forgotten town that buried its own. The van rumbled along the narrow country road, its headlights slicing through the mist that hung low over the Pennsylvania hills. Inside, 4 friends sat surrounded by cameras, microphones, and half-empty coffee cups, the unmistakable chaos of a crew chasing ghosts. Alex leaned forward from the passenger seat, scanning the map glowing on his tablet. Eldridge Hollow, he murmured, the name itself sounding like a whisper. Population 62. Jamie, behind the camera, even when she didn't have to be, snorted. More like 62 ghosts. You sure this place even has Wi-Fi? Riley laughed, his voice warm and teasing. Perfect. If we get lost, at least it'll make a killer finale. Podcasters vanish in haunted town, views through the roof. Taylor adjusted her glasses, flipping through a weathered notebook filled with clippings and scribbled notes. This town used to be a mining hub in the 1800s, she said quietly, collapsed in 1897. Over 200 miners died. Some say they were buried alive. Awesome, Alex grinned. That's our cold open. They were chasing stories for a YouTube docuseries, Ghost Town Diaries. Alex, the ambitious filmmaker, had convinced them that exploring forgotten towns could turn their small channel into the next big paranormal hit. Each of them had a role. Jamie shot and edited, Taylor handled research, Riley was the comic relief, the smooth-voiced narrator of their podcast. Together, they were urban adventurers in search of history's restless echoes. As the van crested the final hill, the forgotten town appeared. A scatter of crumbling houses swallowed by trees. The sign at the edge of town was rusted through, the words, "Welcome to Eldridge Hollow," barely legible beneath streaks of red-brown corrosion that looked too much like dried blood. They arrived just before dusk. The streets were empty, lined with abandoned storefronts and warped wooden porches that groaned in the wind. Here and there, an old curtain fluttered, maybe the draft, maybe someone watching. Their lodging was the Hargrove Inn, a leaning 2-story building that smelled faintly of dust and lavender. The innkeeper, Mrs. Hargrove, was a thin, sharp-eyed woman wrapped in layers of faded shawls. She greeted them with a polite smile that never touched her eyes. "You here for the mines," she said flatly, not asking but knowing. Alex nodded. "We're filming a documentary on ghost towns. Just history and maybe a few legends." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "History here doesn't like being disturbed," she murmured. "You'd do well not to dig too deep. The Hollow remembers." Taylor shivered, but Riley grinned. "Don't worry, ma'am. We're just passing through. Promise we'll leave the ghosts alone." "See that you do," she said, and turned away, her footsteps echoing down the hall like faint knocks in the dark. After settling in, they headed to the only open bar in town, the Black Lantern. The air inside was thick with smoke and silence. Old men nursed drinks at the counter, their eyes heavy with the kind of caution that comes from living too long with old stories. Alex struck up a conversation with one of them, a bearded man whose face looked carved from the same stone as the surrounding hills. "Ever hear of the old mine collapse?" Alex asked, setting down the recorder. The man gave a slow nod. "Heard it? I was born listening to it. Folks say if you stand near the old shaft after dark, you can hear 'em. The miners. Whispering from below." Riley leaned in. "Whispering what?" The man's eyes flicked to the window where the sky was bruising to twilight. "Don't matter. You don't listen long enough to find out." He drained his glass and stood. "And you best not either." They left the bar as the last bit of sun bled out over the horizon. The town was silent, except for the wind moving through hollow streets. Jamie filmed as they walked, the camera lens catching splintered fences, rusted signs, and a church bell that hadn't rung in decades. In the old graveyard behind the chapel, Taylor brushed away vines from a row of nameless headstones. "No inscriptions," she said softly. "Just numbers. Maybe they're the miners." Jamie's flashlight flickered over one stone, cracked clean down the middle. "Creepy," she muttered. "You think it's safe to film here?" "Safe?" Riley laughed nervously. "Not a word I'd use for this place." At the town library, a single room filled with dust and forgotten ledgers. Taylor unearthed a yellowed newspaper from 1897. The headline read, "Mine Tragedy Kills 237. Company Denies Negligence." There, she pointed to a column at the bottom. The mine owner, Elias Blackthorne. He refused to pay compensation. Some rumors say the collapse wasn't an accident, that he sealed the shaft to bury his mistakes. Alex looked up from his notes, eyes gleaming. Perfect. Corporate greed, death, and ghosts. That's exactly what people love. Night fell quickly over Eldridge Hollow. Inside the inn, the four of them huddled around their laptops, sorting through footage. The wind outside howled through the cracks, and now and then a faint tap-tap echoed from somewhere behind the walls. Jamie frowned. "You hear that?" "Probably the pipes," Riley said, grinning. "Or maybe the ghosts are giving us a round of applause." But Alex wasn't smiling. The knocks had rhythm, slow, finna, deliberate. He muted the audio playback, and the room grew uncomfortably still. The tapping stopped. Then, faintly, a sigh drifted through the air, soft as breath on glass. Taylor's voice broke the silence. "Let's check out the mine tonight. Check out you'll have the gear ready." Riley groaned. "Now? It's freezing out there." "Exactly," Alex said. "The cold will give us that perfect fog effect. You want real views? We need to push for it." They followed the overgrown trail out of town, flashlights slicing through the darkness. The mouth of the mine lay at the base of a hill, sealed long ago with a collapsed wooden gate and rusted warning signs. Jamie set up the camera while Riley narrated into the mic. "It's nearly midnight here in Eldridge Hollow, and we're standing at the site of the infamous Blackthorn mine, where hundreds of workers met their end over a century ago. Locals say the earth still whispers their names." As the camera rolled, Taylor brushed away dirt from a patch of ground near the entrance. Beneath the soil, something glinted. She knelt and pulled out a small rusted necklace, an old silver locket with an unfamiliar symbol etched on its surface. "Look at this," she whispered. Jamie zoomed in for a close-up. The pendant seemed to hum faintly, the metal cold even through Taylor's gloves. Then came the whisper. At first, it was just wind through the trees, but slowly, unmistakably, a voice slithered through the night, low, hoarse, and intimate. "Taylor." She froze. Did someone say my name?" Alex turned, scanning the dark. "Stay close." The whisper came again, this time from the mine itself. "Taylor." The camera caught a flicker, a pale blur shifting deep in the shadows beyond the gate. Riley stumbled back, swearing. "Nope, I'm out. That's enough content for one night." Alex's hands shook slightly as he kept filming. "Did you see that? Please tell me someone else saw that." Jamie checked the footage, her voice unsteady. "There's something there. Like a person." They stood in silence, the only sound the rustle of wind over dead leaves. Then, from the depths of the mine came 3 slow knocks. Heavy, echoing, deliberate. Bang, bang, bang. The ground beneath their feet trembled faintly, and the camera light flickered. "Let's go," Taylor whispered, clutching the locket. "Please." They didn't argue. The group hurried back toward the inn, their footsteps crunching on gravel, hearts pounding louder than the wind. That night, as the others slept, Riley woke in a sweat. His dream had been suffocating, the sound of stone collapsing, men screaming, fingernails scraping against rock. He sat up, gasping for air. Outside the window, something moved. A figure, faint, gray, featureless, stood just beyond the glass, its head tilted as if listening. Riley's breath hitched. He blinked, and it was gone. But the whisper lingered in his ears, curling like smoke. "You shouldn't have come here." Morning light crept through the cracked curtains of Mrs. Hargrove's inn, cutting through the haze of exhaustion that hung over the group. The footage from last night still played in Alex's head, the strange static, the flickering shadow near the sealed mine entrance, and that whisper. It wasn't just the wind. Jamie sat at his laptop, headphones pressed tight. "Guys," he said, voice low, "you need to hear this." He rewound the audio from his camera, filtered out the background noise, and turned the volume up. Beneath the sound of footsteps and distant wind came something else, soft, broken words. "They buried us alive." The room fell silent. Even Riley, usually the jokester, stopped mid-sip of his coffee. "That's what the hell, man," Riley muttered. "Could be a prank, right? Locals trying to mess with us?" Taylor shook her head, her voice tight. No one was near that site. The whole town's avoiding it. She opened her notebook, already full of scribbles from the town library. "Listen to this. Eldridge Hollow's mine collapse wasn't just an accident. The owner, Elias Blackthorn, was accused of using child labor and cutting corners on safety. When the mine caved in, they said he sealed it, literally, to cover his crimes." Alex frowned, pacing. "You mean those people? They never got out?" Taylor nodded. "Hundreds. Men, kids, and according to the town's archives, Blackthorn disappeared soon after. Locals said the mine was cursed, that anyone who tried to dig there vanished too." The air in the small inn felt heavier after her words. Still, Alex's eyes gleamed with determination. This is exactly what we need. Real history. Real horror. Think about it. Episode 1, The Hollow That Swallowed Its Own. It's perfect. Riley gave a reluctant smirk. Yeah, nothing says viral like a few dead miners. But even he couldn't shake the chill when Mrs. Hargrove appeared at the doorway, holding a tray of breakfast. Her hands trembled slightly. "You folks shouldn't be talking about them," she said softly. "The dead here, they remember." Before anyone could reply, she turned and shuffled away, muttering something under her breath that sounded like a prayer. By noon, they were back on the dusty road leading to the old mine. The air smelled of rust and pine sap. Every step closer to the sealed entrance made the temperature drop. Jamie carried the EVP recorder while Riley filmed with his handheld GoPro. Alex led the way, flashlight in hand, the beam bouncing off the collapsed timbers, and the rusted warning sign that read, "Property of Blackthorn Mining Co., trespassers will be prosecuted." Taylor crouched near a pile of debris. "These timbers are newer than the rest. Someone's been down here recently." Alex grinned. Or something. They pried open a narrow opening just large enough to crawl through. Inside, the darkness seemed alive, thick, almost tangible. The air reeked of damp stone and something faintly metallic. "All right," Riley said, forcing a laugh. "If I die here, make sure to clickbait the title. Podcaster gets dragged to hell for content." Jamie chuckled nervously. Already sounds like a hit. They moved deeper. The beams creaked above them, and their footsteps echoed in uneven rhythm. Then Taylor's flashlight caught something buried under dust, a leather-bound book, edges eaten by time. She picked it up carefully. This belonged to Elias Blackthorn." The name was etched faintly inside the cover. The pages were filled with cramped handwriting, entries about the mine, the workers, and notes that grew more erratic with each line. The final page read, "The earth will not keep them quiet. Their cries seep through stone. Only blood will silence them." A chill spread through Taylor's spine. She could swear she heard faint breathing just behind her. "Guys," Jamie whispered, "do you hear that?" Everyone froze. From deeper within the tunnel came a soft, dragging sound, like boots scraping across gravel. Alex raised his camera, heart hammering. "Hello? Anyone there?" No answer, only the faint echo of water dripping. Then, a child's laugh. Jamie spun, flashlight shaking. "Screw this, I'm going back." But as he turned, the tunnel behind him was gone. Just wall. "Wait, where's the exit?" Riley shouted, panic breaking through his usual humor. The air grew colder, their breath turned to mist. A whisper slithered through the dark. "You shouldn't have come back." The lights flickered, and for one brief moment they saw them. Figures half buried in stone, faces twisted in agony, reaching out. Then darkness again. When they stumbled out into daylight covered in dirt and sweat, Jamie was pale and shaking. He didn't speak for a long while. Finally, he muttered, "Something touched me." He showed them his arm, long, thin scratches running down his skin, as if from unseen hands. They drove back in silence. The sky over Eldridge Hollow was gray, and the air hung still. At the inn, the door stood ajar. Mrs. Hargrove was gone. That evening, Alex insisted on setting up a seance scene for their podcast recording. "Just to recreate the superstition," he said. "We'll fake the ritual, add some sound effects later." They sat around a round table in the common room, candles flickering. The EVP recorder lay in the center. Riley rolled his eyes. "Welcome to Ghost Talk, Episode 1. Let's anger the dead." Taylor wasn't laughing. She stared at the recorder, hands clasped around the old necklace she'd found earlier. Its metal felt strangely warm, pulsing against her skin. Alex began reading aloud from Blackthorn's journal, just for dramatic effect. But as he spoke, the air changed, the candle flames bent inward, and the table began to tremble. That's not me," Riley whispered. The EVP clicked, static rising, and then a voice clearer than before. "You took what's ours." Jamie bolted upright. "Okay, enough. This is too much." But the recorder didn't stop. "You'll join us soon." Then all the candles went out. They screamed, scrambling for flashlights. When the lights came back on, the necklace in Taylor's hand was glowing faintly red. Riley's voice was barely a whisper. "That's not a prop, is it?" Taylor didn't answer. Her eyes were wide, unfocused, as if seeing something none of them could. "They're watching us," she said softly. They never left. Later that night, the four sat in silence, the weight of what they'd heard pressing on them. Riley broke the tension first. "All right, Maybe it's not ghosts. Maybe someone's messing with us, locals or some psycho who knows we're filming. Jamie scoffed. Then how'd they fake the voice on the recorder? Taylor was trembling. The necklace, it belonged to Blackthorn's wife. She killed herself after the collapse. Maybe it's connected. Alex exhaled sharply. Look, whatever this is, we can't stop now. If this is real, if we can prove it, this documentary could change everything. Jamie shot him a glare. You sound just like every idiot in a horror movie before they die. No one laughed this time. Outside, the wind howled through the empty streets. A loose sign creaked somewhere in the dark. They tried to sleep, but the house groaned with every gust, and faintly, beneath it all, came that same distant tapping, like knuckles against wood. When Riley finally drifted off, he dreamed of the mine, of walls closing in, of screams echoing through stone. He saw faces, men, women, children, all with mouths full of dirt. One of them looked straight at him and whispered, "We're still here." He jolted awake, heart pounding. The room was dark, the air icy, and outside his window, standing perfectly still under the flickering porch light, was a shadow, human-shaped, watching. The storm rolled in just before dawn, low thunder crawling across the hills of Eldridge Hollow. Rain lashed against the windows of Mrs. Hargrove's inn, but inside, no one slept. Alex sat at the table surrounded by cables, mics, and the cracked pages of Blackthorn's journal. His hands trembled slightly as he flipped through it again. "Listen," he said, voice raw from exhaustion. "He writes here, the cries will not stop until blood pays for blood. It's a ritual or a curse." Riley rubbed his temples. "A curse? Alex, come on. We're supposed to be rational storytellers, not ghost bait." Taylor's face was pale, eyes rimmed red from sleeplessness. "It's not just a story. I saw them last night, the miners, the children. They were reaching for me." Her voice cracked. They wanted help. Jamie sat quietly, the scratches on his arms still raw. Help or revenge? Outside, the rain grew heavier, tapping like restless fingers against the glass. Alex stood. "We go back to the mine. One last time. We'll document everything. If this is real, the world deserves to know." Riley slammed his palm on the table. "You're insane. One of us could die down there." Alex's eyes darkened. "Then at least it won't be for nothing." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Taylor whispered, "I'm going. We started this together." Jamie hesitated, then nodded. "Fine, but if anything happens again, we're done." Riley cursed under his breath, but grabbed his gear. "You people are going to get me killed for clout." By afternoon, the storm had thinned to mist. The forest surrounding the mine felt wrong, too quiet, as if the rain had drowned out every bird, every insect. The trees leaned inward, skeletal and slick with moisture, their branches like fingers pointing toward the dark maw of the old mine. Jamie led with his flashlight. The opening looks bigger. He was right. The boards that had sealed the entrance before were now half splintered, as though something had pushed from the inside. Riley swallowed hard. "I told you this place breathes." Taylor knelt near the entrance, flipping open the journal one last time. Blackthorn wrote that he heard them moving under the ground, clawing toward the surface. Alex adjusted the camera on his chest. "Then let's give them a voice." They descended. The air changed instantly, cold, metallic, heavy. Their flashlights cut through the dark like weak candles, barely holding back the thick, clinging blackness. Water dripped from the ceiling, echoing down the tunnels. Riley spoke into his mic. "For the listeners, Eldridge Hollow mine, supposed site of the 1897 collapse. Local legends say the spirits of the miners were never laid to rest. We're here to..." He stopped. "Wait, do you hear that?" Faint, rhythmic thuds, like a pickaxe striking stone. Taylor whispered, "It's coming from below us." They pressed deeper, following the sound. The air stank of sulfur and burnt coal. Jamie's camera flickered, static, distortion, then for half a second, a face in the lens, eyes hollow, mouth open in a silent scream. "Shit, did you see that?" Jamie hissed, slapping the camera. "Keep filming," Alex ordered. "We need everything." They found another tunnel branching off to the left, one none of them remembered seeing before. Its walls were carved with childlike markings, stick figures holding hands, flames drawn in crude circles. Taylor's flashlight trembled. "These are prayers or warnings." The sound of footsteps echoed behind them. Jamie spun around, but the passage was empty. "Okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm not dying for your YouTube views, Alex." "Wait," Taylor gasped. "There's something." Her light hit a wooden door, buried halfway in rubble. Carved into it was a single name, Elias Blackthorne. They exchanged nervous glances. Alex reached for the handle. This is it. The door creaked open with a sigh that sounded almost human. Beyond it was a narrow chamber, walls lined with collapsed beams and bones. Hundreds of bones. A child's doll sat among them, its porcelain face cracked in two. Taylor's breath hitched. Oh my God. Riley raised his recorder. If anyone can hear us, the EVP crackled, then hissed with static. You took what's ours. Jamie dropped the camera. No, this isn't possible. Taylor clutched the necklace, the strange symbol glowing faintly in the gloom. They want retribution. Then the ground shuddered. Dust rained from the ceiling. The tunnel groaned as though the earth itself were waking. Riley shouted, "Move! It's collapsing!" They stumbled back, rocks falling, beams splintering, but Taylor froze. A faint light shimmered ahead, pale blue, forming into shapes, figures in miners' uniforms, eyes like coals, mouths whispering soundless pleas. One stepped forward, a small boy, face streaked with soot, a lantern hanging from his skeletal hand. Alex whispered, "Holy shit, this is real!" The boy looked directly at them, then his lips moved. "He buried us. You will dig us free." The chamber roared as unseen hands tore at the walls. Shadows surged around them, grabbing at their limbs, pulling, dragging. Jamie screamed, vanishing into the dark. "Jamie!" Taylor cried, lunging forward. But the boy turned his lantern toward her. Fire burst from the walls, illuminating faces, hundreds of them, men, women, children, all wailing silently as the flames consumed them again and again. Riley yanked Taylor back, coughing. "We have to go!" But Alex was staring at the journal, eyes wide. "The curse, it says only blood can silence them." He tore the pages free, holding them over a flickering flame from Riley's lighter. "If we burn the words, we break the bond." The journal ignited, its old leather curling in on itself. A scream, high, inhuman, ripped through the tunnel. The shadows recoiled. The lantern boy dropped his light, eyes hollow with rage. Then the ceiling cracked. Jamie's voice echoed faintly, "Go!" just before the ground gave way. Riley dragged Taylor, shoving her toward the entrance. Alex stumbled behind, clutching the burning pages. The tunnel collapsed in a thunderous roar, burying everything in black. When Taylor opened her eyes, she was lying in the mud outside the mine. Rain poured down again. Riley knelt beside her, coughing, covered in ash. "Alex?" She croaked. Riley shook his head. "He was right behind me. Then, nothing." They stared at the smoking entrance. The entire hillside had caved in, sealing it forever. Minutes passed in silence, only the rain and the distant rumble of thunder. Finally, Riley whispered, "Do you think it's over?" Taylor looked down at her hand, the necklace once glowing, now dull and cold. She whispered, "Maybe, but I don't think they'll ever rest." 2 days later, they sat in the diner of the next town over. Riley's hands still trembled as he spoke into his mic. "This is Riley from Ghost Talk. We came to Eldridge Hollow chasing a story, and we found something that shouldn't exist. Some things aren't meant to be unearthed." He paused, eyes glancing at Taylor across the table. "Alex wanted the truth. I think the mine kept it." Taylor didn't reply. She stared out the window at the fog rolling across the hills. On the diner's TV, local news played, "Eldridge Hollow landslide seals old mine. No survivors reported inside." Riley exhaled shakily. "Guess we're the lucky ones," Taylor whispered. "No one's lucky here." They packed up and left town before nightfall. As their car rumbled down the empty road, the radio hissed with static. Then, just for a second, a familiar voice came through. "You haven't escaped." The static snapped back to silence. Riley turned off the radio. Neither spoke again until dawn. Weeks later, the unfinished Ghost Talk episode was uploaded automatically from Alex's cloud account. It featured their last recording, the seance, the voices, the screams, ending with Alex's voice whispering, "We gave them what they wanted." The video went viral, but those who listened closely to the final minute claimed to hear something else under the static. Hundreds of faint, overlapping whispers, each one calling a name. One of them was yours.